Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Higgins, psychologist and relationship coach, and this is the Empowered Relationship podcast, where we explore how to cultivate connection and more secure functioning in love. Today, we're talking with Dr. David Mars, the founder of transformative couples therapy, and how partners can move from patterns of projection and reactivity into true presence and connection. And my intention for the Empowered Relationship podcast and this particular conversation is to invite you to slow down, listen with your whole body, and remember genuine intimacy arises not from fixing or defending, but from presence, from truly meeting yourself and your partner with curiosity and care. Let's get started. David, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very glad to be here.
Yes, I know we are privileged to have your time and all that you do and all that you've created. And I know we're going to be talking about a specific topic today and then also learning a little bit more about your work in the world. As we talk about the I-thou relationship and practicing presence, I'm curious for people just getting to know you. Where would you like to start around how this became of interest? And I know that could be probably many episodes to cover your background and your story, but what would you like people to know about how this fits with your work?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. The I-thou relationship is, to be quite profound. A part of it is that I've been married, come July, I'll be married 40 years. And we're not
Congratulations.
the same person in the sense that we're both evolving. We're both going through molting periods of our lives, of course, different seasons of our lives, different challenges. And I find that the I-thou perspective is so helpful to stay alive, to stay present, to be ongoing curious about her internal world. And even though we've been together for so many years, 42 years in all, that if I remain curious about her, and she remains curious about me, we don't need to project. And projections, of course, are one of the areas that people can get lost in and begin to get into blame or feeling devalued, not understood. And the seeing and being seen, knowing and being known are so profoundly important for human dignity and for the sense of being valued, a sense of feeling accompanied. And all of these, I think, in couples are so important because it's very possible to be very lonely in a one-to-one relationship life, even with children, even with, family friends or whatever. But the primary bond issue to me is so important for lifelong transformative opportunities.
Absolutely. And in connection, we are wired up, I believe, our nervous systems, our emotional attuning to feel the difference of someone maybe having an assumption, a projection, an agenda, or just thinking they know. And that is palpable versus the coming to that interaction from a place of wondering,
Right.
interest, curiosity, and to be in this place of witness, being seen as you're describing.
Yes.
That, would you agree?
Oh, totally. It's so true. And I think that instinct to feel, to perceive being dismissed,
Mm-hmm.
perceive being minimized and shut out from being known by our own word, by our own hand, so to speak, to feel that we have a chance to be known by our partner is so essential to a sense of accompaniment and presence, but also I can actually feel quite harmful and disrespectful to feel projected upon or I know you better than you know yourself. That particularly is a bit devaluing position.
Yeah.
Some people can get stuck in.
Yes. And if we look at, when you're describing the history that you and your wife have together, my husband and I are 19 years, not married 19, but together 19. And he still will give me feedback that if I'm reflectively listening in an attempt to genuinely understand that my perception is different than his experience,
Yeah.
he will tell me that depending on the circumstances, it could be as far as like, oh, you're twisting my words, to I didn't say that, or that's not. And so it's really clear feedback. And I think couples are negotiating this. And one thing that seems really important is that it's difficult to slow this down, because I think our protective strategies are so quick to intervene or when we feel threatened. And how do you help people access the I thou approach?
I like the question. For me, in couples therapy, every session starts with gratitudes. So I do a meditation that I lead. It's invented. It's fresh every time. It's improvisational, about 3 minutes long, and it's based on the last session's commitments that the couples made to each other. And to speak of, what do you want with your partner? Many people have grown to be needless and wantless, to not know one's own needs, to not express one's own needs, but to be resentful if they don't get their needs met. And then how do we then untangle that? So one way is to have couples talk directly to each other. So every session, I'm asking the couple members to speak to each other, not me. Some sparks for conversation, for deepening conversation as a couple. But I do want you to talk to each other, not me. And in the process of speaking to each other, see each other, hear each other, sense each other, and speak in language that's somatically rich. So I could say, okay, so what's that like to hear that George is really appreciating how attentive you've been, how calm you've been? And the partner says, that's nice. I say, what kind of nice? Please tell George what kind of nice that is for you. And to be told, oh gosh, well, that actually touches my heart, or I feel seen, or I feel known, or I feel grateful that you are remembering me. And that is so much deeper than that feels nice.
Yes.
When a couple gets that kind of a lively, embodied response back and forth at home between sessions, it allows them to keep on growing their neural networks to become more fluent. And one of the dimensions of being human is all of us on this planet have been raised by humans who were imperfect beings in certain ways and had strengths and weaknesses. And what we know from Beatrice Beebe's work, for example, is that by age 4 months already, it's possible to know the baby's attachment style: anxious, ambivalent, or resistant, or being avoidant, or being secure attached, or being disorganized attached at 16 weeks of age. And this, to me, is revolutionary, because what it tells me is that before we can remember consciously, we've already been formed by the environment of the mother-infant relationship. And our equipment package for life is really set in place. And how do we change that? Because there's research that indicates that by age 27, about 70% of people will still be where they were at a year of age, developmentally, around, I don't mean that, I mean developmentally, I mean in their attachment style,
Yes.
attachment pattern,
Yes.
set, but not in stone. If
Yes.
we're with a partner who is more securely attached than ourselves, lucky us, because we really get to grow with that person. Another change factor that can really make a difference in going beyond the original insecure pattern or the level of security is to keep growing through couples therapy, for example, particularly a somatically rich couples therapy, where the early baby experience of seeing and being seen by the mom, hearing and being heard by the mom, not words, but cries or laughter or a whimper or even a need to be given some space, that the adult mind is still recrafting what was formed at 16 weeks of age.
Yes.
Fascinating,
Yes.
like a baby brain.
Tremendous amount of learning opportunity and the neuroplasticity. And I love, for people who are just listening to the podcast here, when I'm observing your gesturing and just this exchange, this back and forth, and how alive this dynamic, and that we are, that responsiveness, that attunement is so important. And as you're describing in the therapeutic setting,
Yeah.
not only the tone that you're setting through the meditation and focus of gratitude, but the invitation to pay attention and slow down to the somatic or the body sensation, but to be in the experience of turning towards one another, looking at each other's microfacial expressions. I mean, not that they're fully aware of all those details, but the lived and the real imprint of responding, that real, and being in a bit more clarity around what matters and deepening in the vulnerability of that, the invitation to be really present to what do I notice and how does this matter to me?
Yep. It's lovely. I really appreciate you languaging this. And I feel on the personal side, my wife and I are both therapists. She focuses more on individuals. I focus more on couples. We're both faculty. I'm a director of my own institute, the TCT Institute, or Transformative Couples Therapy Institute. She is with ADP Institute, and we both have our pressures. We both have our demands to edit video, to teach, to be online, to travel. And to do all that means we need to really work on our integrity of our relationship, communication, the arrivals and the leavings, and all the other elements that can lead to competitiveness or misunderstanding or one up, one down dynamics, which are so uncomfortable, and to keep on being humble enough to notice, am I really using I statements? Am I really authentically being vulnerable in my communication enough to say, not just that's nice, but this is how I'm touched by you, or this is how I'm feeling actually a little irritated. And it's my irritation. You didn't do it to me, but I'm having it. If I can speak of it skillfully and she can hear me, then we have a kind of a repair process going on or deeper understanding level that equips us in our clinical practice. And be integrous and keep on being a citizen of the world as part of bringing peace.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the ways I imagine, I will say for my own practice with my husband, that I have many practices that allow me to be in my own integrity, but relationally, that's of high value. And to be in that practice together allows me to exist differently when I'm in that flow or in contact. Do you have a because what sorry, on the back, I'm kind of an aside on that is there's a lot of research around when we're disconnected or feeling that aloneness or feeling the conflict and again that disconnection that it has great impacts on us as social animals. Yes. Okay.
Yes, it's so true. And especially with regard to being female. I don't know if you know this, but you may know it circumstantially or by research, I'm not sure, but that women are far more likely to become impaired in their autonomic nervous system and to get stress-related illnesses than men are. And they're very sad, to me, very sad, that there's a certain vulnerability of being female that is no doubt partly genetic, but also partly due to the sensitization process of being a mother, perhaps, having a female nervous system, and actually being more endowed with developmental characteristics that are mature earlier than the male counterpart. The male counterpart, for myself, I come from a family with four brothers. I
Mhm.
felt so sorry for my mom. She's got all these intense energies running around. She always never complained. She really enjoyed us. But the wear and tear of a male psyche, or five male psyches, and six including my father, oh my gosh, that's a lot to bear for one nervous system. And to be human and to be stressed, particularly in the area of loneliness, feeling misunderstood, feeling a lack of adequate justice and fairness and balance. And for my sadness as I'm speaking, because it is so common in the world, and that possibility of developing lupus or developing some issue to do with the thyroid or some issue to do with chronic fatigue or chronic pain is so heightened by being female. Are you
Mhm.
perspective as well?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's coming up, yeah, I would agree. And also just evolutionarily, how often, whether or not this is partly supported by our environment and also the genetic component of being a bit more tribal or networked, even in adolescence, I think there's research around there's so much learning and shaping around prioritizing the relational connections and friend networks that they will actually suppress any of the conflicts
Mm,
because they're prioritizing those bonds. And so if we look at the priority of those bonds and how that is so connected to our sense of livelihood or well-being,
mm,
yeah, that that these relational
Yep.
ruptures or disconnections can have a huge impact, especially as you talk about the fast-paced modern living where we're high demands, high distractions, don't give as many opportunities for this depth of connecting.
It's so true. And I noticed when you were speaking about if you're really not being heard and kind of having your hands over your heart, to be able to be selectively receptive is so precious. If a partner is in a grouchy, irritable, reactive mode, and one cannot take it all in, can hear it, can see it, can understand it, but not be penetrated by it. This is a great talent, a very important talent, because it's so important to experience that we have some kind of shock absorber element for ourselves to be not shocked by our partners. And if our partner is in a mood, to be able to say, wait, um, I don't want to go further talking about this now. I'm feeling agitation building in me. I'm feeling some fatigue happening in me, maybe. But I don't want to talk about it in the place I'm in right now. I don't feel resourced enough. Let's talk later. Let's definitely talk about this topic, but later. And I do want to make a time with you to talk. And if I can't do it then, I'm going to do it another time, but let's negotiate how to complete this conversation.
Okay, so to that point, I'm interested if we're genderizing this a little bit and just the kind of evolutionary cultural influences. I've often heard more of the male experience being a bit more physical, being physically a little bit more aware of surroundings, being physically bonding together, and that perhaps there can be a little bit more conflict that's tolerated, and then just kind of we trust we're okay and we can squash it and let it go. Does this same care, is it needed? Do you feel like, I mean, I think what you're talking about is a level of awareness around perhaps a system, whether or not it's gender or not, but just as one system that's sensitive to those relational cues, even if they can say in my mind, I know you're upset and it's okay, but to care like, oh, I don't know that I have extra charge around this that I need to kind of really express. I
Mhm.
want to be a little bit more resourced as I do this.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Well, what I want to say is that the ability to say no, not now,
Yeah.
is a freedom that actually can really calm the nervous system immensely.
Yeah.
At 22 years in my practice, my clinical practice in my office, of using really sensitive biofeedback equipment. And the biofeedback equipment measured heart rate, breathing rate type and depth, nervous system arousal based on sweat glands, changes in muscle tension, heart rate variability related to breathing, and that RSA, the respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which is healthy when it's co-varying with the heart, can be very disrupted by a feeling of unsafety.
Hmm.
It's compressed, and there isn't that relaxation response in every out breath, or the heart isn't getting to slow itself after every out breath, that we end up becoming more compromised.
Hmm.
How do I be free? I can be free by setting some limits sometimes I need to take care of myself, but also to say, if we're going to have this conversation, I want you to speak about yourself, not about me.
Hmm.
And that is huge. Please use I statements and please mean what you're saying because I want to understand you talking about your own experience of being with me, but not who I am.
Yes, because I'm likely to feel defensive even if I really am trying to understand you. It's really
Mhm.
hard for me to maneuver against what feels like criticism or attack. Okay, this is so valuable, and I'm just wanting to say for myself and listeners that I mean, I work with a lot of male clients individually around relational concerns, and there is such a longing to have this connection and this way of relating with the integrity and the intentionality that you're describing, and that perhaps their partner is expressing a lot of reactivity, isn't necessarily practicing the things you're describing now. How do you help people? I know I already asked this question, but if they're in patterns of reactivity or not having this intentional safe space where they're taking responsibility, using I statements, is there anything you want to encourage around how to set this up? Where, I mean, because you gave us a clue a bit about gratitude and
Yeah.
centering and meditation. And I guess one other thing to add, I know this is a lot, but the I thou, is there a spiritual component to the thou?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how far you take it. Buber's intention in his 50 years and largely in Israel writing, as a kind of a philosopher, religious philosopher, he deeply influenced humanistic psychology and existential psychology, Carl Rogers among others, Jung. And the I thou perspective is profound because the alternative is I it.
Mm-hmm.
I it is it's instrumental. You do this, I do that. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. But it has no quality of depth and that sense of reaching into oneself to know the other. And it makes space for the other to exist as they truly are, but even to be a partner that leaves room for the partner to discover him or herself.
Hmm.
How do I know myself? It's through knowing another, and the neural network experiences evolve our minds through interaction with another human, particularly a lifelong partner. And some people believe that it's not possible to have a partner, a lifelong partner, same sex or heterosexual, who is a friend, who shares the mortgage, even a best friend who has a sexual life with as a partner. And is it possible to do this with one person? It's not possible. That's too much. But to me, it's totally possible. But it is really a reach to build that and maintain that. It's like tending a garden.
Yeah.
There's always something needs watering or pruning or some way that there's a kind of a necessity to keep weeds and pests from invading the garden. There are habits from past generations, even, or from circumstances that become very limiting about how much can I relax to be present in myself. So my sense is the intentionality is so hugely important. I want you to want to know me. And I want you to want to know me because I want to know you. And let's grow together because we can. And if we get off track, let's come back to the I statements. Just be aware, speaking of ourselves.
Yes. David, I'm getting a sense as you're describing that what you're encouraging is expansive
Mhm.
versus what we're a bit more habituated to. And there is some of the, I would say, just human tendency of automating for conserving energy that can work against this, but that can be contracting or reducing.
Yep.
And even as you said in the beginning with your wife, that there's been evolution in both of you individually and then also in your relationship. I will raise my hand, and that's been my experience too. And that possibly even in this I thou,
Mhm.
I may learn or contact parts of myself that I wasn't fully aware of
Mhm.
or living into if I'm being presenced in this very attentive way that I might not access either on my own or without that I
Yep.
thou connection.
It's so true. So true. And part of what I love about the long term relationship perspective is that there are seasons of our lives that are difficult, that are activating, that are even alienating from each other.
Mhm.
And to have repair around them is so healing and so powerfully moving us into other dimensions of transformation. And what else are we on the planet for, if not to grow and transform and be our greatest selves we can be, our greatest meaning, most coherent, most connected, most aware, and most able to bring peace. And particularly if we have children in our lives,
Mhm.
to see us being relationally integrous and naming our feelings, speaking who we are, and for the children to know mom likes dad, dad likes dad, dad likes, in same sex marriages as well, that there's a liking of each other and a loving of each other that's essentially respectful. And the children thrive in this with very low anxiety because this is the dream of life and the reality when people are really consciously attending to each other with respect. The I statements are part of that respect.
Thank you. Do you find that if one is intending to relate from this I thou, that it would offer more capacity or call them into more skillfulness?
I do. I do. And natural spontaneous growth of neural networks that have not been grown before. And what I find so compelling is that the possibility, even if a couple is not in psychotherapy, even if they're not in couples therapy, to meditation, for example, to meditate together. My wife and I, whenever we can, meditate in the morning together, even as briefly as 10 minutes. And I find that energetic bonding, though we're not interacting during that meditation, be a wonderful way to start the day. It's a secure base beginning in each of us. And then we're going on to our days, each of us, in a way that's fortified with consciousness and a sense of being humble, a sense of being present. And that longing for the well-being of others is really part of the meditation experience for me and for many people.
Hmm.
And the longing for the other to be fully who they are can be so much nutritive to ourselves. It's like enlightened self-interest.
Yes. And it sounds like a real acknowledging, and not only is it the shared partnership, but also the real space for the expression of one another. Yeah, it is so rich and deep and dynamic.
Yeah, it's an exciting way to live to me. I want to add one of the dimensions of transformative couples therapy is the 7 channels of experience. Some couples therapies focus on emotion. That's the holy grail. We want to get to emotion. And in truth, from my point of view, we are not just emotional beings. We have sensation capacities. We have movement awareness capacities. We have auditory capacities. We have capacities of energetically being aware of our environment. We have capacities to be imaginal and to have a very rich internal imaginal dream, like waking, dreaming a way to conceive of what we want in life together. So sensation, emotion, energy, movement, auditory, visual, and imaginal, 7 channels. And if we grow these, we will naturally become more profoundly able to know ourselves vertically, to know our partners horizontally, in other words, from me to you in this space. But if I know myself and what my experience is, I can speak of it with authority.
Hmm.
I don't mean domination authority, but authority. I know what I'm talking about. This is how I feel in my gut or in my belly or in my heart. And I want you to know me. If I don't know how to track, if I only know how to track emotion, I'm a little handicapped because maybe it's not what I'm responding to. It's the energetic vibing I'm getting.
Totally. And I think that when people are expressing themselves, some people speak in metaphor, like it reminds me of this, or,
Mhm.
I think we naturally are living into these different channels. And I mean, so I appreciate you laying this out around the more coherent or the clearer we can be in our contact or developing awareness in these 7 different channels, that we have a knowing of self and also can express or send clear signal to another. Is that right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So, and but what I particularly appreciate about it is all of us have been crimped in certain ways by our life experiences. Crimped meaning a reduction of awareness. For example, many therapists that I train, half my work is train therapists and develop training programs with therapists who are couples therapists. The other half is seeing couples in my direct practice. And even among psychotherapists, many of them have not really known the energetic channel.
Mm,
They've been so focused on emotion. But the truth is, the more the energetic channel opens in us as awareness, we can actually we can convey it. And so I'm in sessions often. I'll get some sort of awe state experience. I'm having awe, having tingles in my body and energetic flowering of movement of energy, chills essentially, goosebumps. And I say, is anybody else having this? And usually one or the other or both will have that experience, even though we're online, which is to me quite miraculous
it is.
and normal and replicable. And yet it's something beyond. If I don't ask the question, is anybody else having this energetic experience? The question never gets answered because it's not something that's in the top of mind.
And as we're describing that there could be something shared or connected around that it allows for development.
Mhm.
if we're able to express and connect and have resonance around. In my PhD program, I don't think very many people know this, I was setting out to study energy psychology. And I got deterred big time from all of my professors and mentors that it was too difficult to measure. It was too difficult to quantify, and thus did not continue that path. And I'm grateful. I mean, couples is such a love of mine. And it's something that perhaps we don't have as much support to have language around or access around.
Oh, the paradox is that it can be thought to be too woo-woo.
Correct. That
You
too.
want energy, and yet without energy right now, I would be on the floor dead. Without energy, our bodies do not function at all, and our lives do not continue at all. And to be aware of, for example, one of the pieces of I just love this piece from Beatrice Beebe in her research with infants and mother relationship, that when the mother overlooms over the baby, looming into the baby's space, not taking cues to back off, the baby can get frantic and needing this energetic space. And this is the baby's never read a book, obviously, at 4 months of age, about energy, but they need that space to feel like they've got space enough to breathe and be present and be comfortable. So, and a securely attached mother will notice the baby averting his or her eyes, or looking downward, or pulling back, and just give room. Not pull back also, but just being there, present, but not to be leaning over the crib, so to speak, in the baby's face. All of that is such a imprint. For example, people who are more in a pattern of avoidant attachment often had a combination of rejection experiences, not being met in those first 16 weeks of life and beyond, but also being loomed over and be the pleaser of me. Like, you please me,
Yeah.
give me
Intruded on, or yes.
and intruded upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then that partner later in life as an adult and is saying, I hear exactly what you're saying with a hand up, like back off. But I hear you, but I don't want this much energy directed to me. Now you're up in my grill.
Yeah.
This is I've heard before.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a real cue that imprint about energy maybe being too much
Mm.
is what a gift for the partner to know. If I do back off and give some room, speak more slowly with less intensity, with less emotionality, perhaps, and just be less dramatic, but say, this is what I'm trying to say. Just want you to hear me. And that humbleness of giving space can give the partners more tending toward avoidant attachment room to actually breathe, take in, respond, be collaborative, and suddenly there can be peace. So there could have been a real
Totally.
dismissal response.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I mean, this has been something I've, in the early phases of my relationship with my husband, negotiated. If I use more words than he does, I am quicker in my pacing and am expressive and all the things. And so it could be easy without the information around what's on the inside, or to have that understanding of, oh, I am feeling overwhelmed, or this feels like a lot and I'm wanting to respond. And yet the kind of hand gesture you're getting, to not interpret that as, I don't care, not interested, don't want to do this, those things that we typically, and I did at the time. And yet, if we're in service of connecting, ultimately, I do want him to engage and to be sharing space that he's giving preference, and weighing in around what supports his nervous system. I do care about that. I do want to show up for that. And then we can get into more of this collaborative state.
Mhm.
It was a fumbly road in the beginning.
It was for us too. Yeah, it's a lot to navigate, and particularly because what we know about couples, they tend to attract somebody outside their own tribe, like Romeo and Juliet. And that attracting someone who's different from us, psychobiologically, culturally, can be very challenging. Then to understand the person and say, why did I pick this person? They were so different from me. And yet, in the alchemical process of it, if I can learn to tolerate my partner's differences, which still goes on today after 42 years of living together and being partners, that If I can tolerate our differences and even enjoy them and savor them, now that's a real talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, it's not for us to be matching, but it's us to be understanding and making a kind of a tongue and groove, you might say, relationship that's flexible, not locked in, but is we actually fit together.
Yeah.
And
We
because
complement each other even.
complemented. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I even remember Carl Jung's just recognition that couples over a long period of time might actually start to value, if we're
Nope.
looking at a trait of extroversion, introversion, the benefits of the introversion and the extroversion, and can actually grow those parts inside themselves and develop those parts in the value of the other.
Yes.
Oftentimes, if we're in this fast pace
Mhm.
of life and we notice feelings of hurt feelings and we want to repair that,
Mhm.
but we haven't slowed down to have inquiry around, what does this bring up for me? What am I feeling? And the 7 channels of like, what am I noticing in my body? What do I feel energetically? These types of things, that we might be in a more reactive state and try to approach or resolve that from the reactivity. And yet we could potentially offer so much more if we slow down and kind of find ourselves in those 7 channels.
Yeah, I'm right with you.
Okay.
There's a receptive space there that's provided if I'm prepared to interact and if I've actually consciously regulated myself. I think many people did not grow up with the perspective I'm responsible for regulating my nervous system. I'm responsible to know myself and to make room for you to know yourself in my presence. That's pretty high level.
Yeah.
In fact, boys at kindergarten are well known in research to be looking for who's the top of the heap, who's the leader, who's the most important, who's the strongest, who's the most influence. While the girls are trying to get social connectivity, as you mentioned earlier, and that difference can be challenging to make room for in a life of heterosexual relating. In that way of saying, well, I really do want to be communal with you. I do want to not dominate you because that's not going to be good for either of us.
Mm-mm.
And to feel like we can share power and share space is really good for the world and good for our children.
And that has to be sometimes named, perhaps, that there is such a top or one upping, one downing,
Mhm.
that even if we're not intending to be competitive, that it can sometimes feel like
Mhm.
we're fighting to get our way or our perspective to be heard or to be influenced, like that we're having influence over another, when maybe both are true, right? But we sometimes are so habituated or culturalized to think that there's only one right.
Yes.
And we might be primed for this more competitive stance. So I have 2 things that I'm thinking, and I know we'll transition here. One is, in the early stages, I actually would want my husband to be present while I processed out loud. I am a little bit more of an extrovert,
Mhm.
and he's more of an introvert.
Mhm.
And I recognize somehow that, like, oh, okay, this is so much more productive if I can journal and get all. I don't need to do this anymore, but I did then, and really get all the layers and perhaps touch on some of these 7 channels and give him a little bit more of the distilled. And he was so much more able to hear me and respond rather than like going with me in all the different turns and corners. So it seems not that, because I think even journaling can help be regulating too, that I found my
Absolutely.
ground a bit.
No matter what our gender, if we're willing to write down our process and journal it, not for reading to somebody else, but for our own self knowledge, what a gift to ourselves and our partner and our children
Yeah.
and our community to have that self knowing doesn't require the other one to be with us in all the little twists and turns of our processing. How generous to do that.
No kidding. And perhaps that we can notice, oh, I'm feeling competitive right now, or I'm feeling like I really want to be right,
Mhm.
that can be noticed and maybe even stated, and then we can
Mhm.
revisit when we're in a place of more of that collaborative, like, do we want to be collaborative? And maybe we don't in a moment,
Mhm.
and to kind of have the commitment that I mean, there's a reverence, David, as you're describing this way of relating, there's a real reverence and caretaking for this relational space that we have such agency around.
Yes, and I so agree with you. Well, I love your enthusiasm about it because the experience, I think we have about, I think you're about halfway to the 40-year point.
No, no,
Is
I'm
that correct?
50.
20 years together, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
20 years together, and my
Well,
wife's
not
20
quite,
years,
but 19. Yes, yeah.
15 years. That the journey of it to me is so exciting because not only is it preparing me for someday passing on and hopefully passing away peacefully, but also for having grandchildren, hopefully, and being able to feel like the generativity of life is following on our highest intentions. And that we can see our children interacting with each other and interacting with others, with their partners, because it gives us a sense of, wow, what a joy to watch the next layer of life unfolding in front of us.
Hmm.
How exquisite.
It's so beautiful. Yes. Well, I want to give a little room here for you to share, and maybe this you have been, but given that you developed and founded TCT, you've mentioned a little bit, what would you like people to know about your modality and just, I mean, I love the somatic and just what you're describing about having the information physiologically. There's so many aspects and to what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. What I would love to invite people to do, and just came to me in our conversation, Jessica, is to go to the transformative website and to look at the videos on there, look at look at the educational material about the work and about how to be, I love this one in particular, getting older and getting better, to keep on growing ourselves toward retirement, into retirement, and to keep on feeling that our lives are not over when our children leave home, but that we are actually in a whole different growth spurt of life. And to recognize that's so powerful, particularly if we can maintain our relationship in a loving way. The other thing is, if you're a psychotherapist listening in or a couples therapist, website tct.org. I misspoke, tctinstitute.org, that you'll be able to see training programs and so on that are going on. And some of the affective neuroscience spelled out there as papers and as podcasts on that website. There's two websites that can be gone to. And the quality of being able to just learn what you want to learn is really exciting to me. Just to say, I have a right to learn, I want to learn, and here's where I'm drawn. Somebody might
Mhm.
go another way on the web because the websites are quite developed. And to feel like you've got that sense of resource.
Yes. And this is where there's such opportunity. And if the, as you've so beautifully described, the possibility, then you've done so much to lay the
Yeah,
pathway and offering guidance
yeah,
that this doesn't have to be a mystery.
yeah. And with you. I was just meeting earlier today with a group called a process group that I lead. And we were talking about the expression of the loving mother. I had a very loving mother, Molly. She passed away just 4 months ago at 98. That Molly is such a loving being still today in my heart. And this is really the conveyance of what I want to bring into the world is that loving energy that is so persistently durable,
Mm,
right to her last day, her last hour of feeling her loving nature. Feeling this is really part of the gift I want to bring in the world is
mm.
that love, respect my father, love my father, of course, who's also passed on, but the dimension of the divine feminine in a loving, almost angelic presence of generosity is
Mm.
so profound to have known and to want to be in the body memory presence of.
Yes. Yes. When you were describing your work in session, I felt as though you connecting with that energy, if you will, to offer
Yeah,
the container
yeah,
and the real intention that people can reference or model after or utilize so that it means a bit of training wheels, right? That we get that support to know that it's possible to get some experience looking at one another through that focused integrity and intention that then can live into it outside a session.
yeah, that's so true. So true. Yeah. I mean, life is for living in the way that I have a hummingbird, two hummingbirds come to the feeder outside here, and I'm so often aware of them and so grateful that I'm not a hummingbird. It's, their patterns are remarkably patterned, repetitive to me. That's my projection, I suppose. But I'm so glad that I can grow, that I can evolve, that I can choose to evolve because I want to evolve. With a willing partner who wants to also evolve, we have a wonderful combination then to evolve together.
No kidding. And the last thing I'll say here is that it feels, as you said, at any point in time that we can want this or be called or give room for this as a priority of growth, of having this loving, relating, and that we are wired up for it,
Yes, we are.
and that you're offering a tremendous amount of guidance and support, and also we can access it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much. I'm so enjoying you, so appreciating your reflections and your presence, and so glad to be in the world with you, Jessica.
Oh, thank you, David. And I'm deeply honored for all that you're doing and the gift you've given the world and training others and helping people, again, access your modality and everything you've shared here today. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining today's conversation with Dr. David Mars. I'm hoping that you received something valuable here in today's conversation, helping you move towards greater understanding and intimacy and presence in your relationship. Again, you can find all the links, today's takeaways, the full transcript, and the free relationship guide at drjessicahiggins.com, and you'll find all of that there under podcast. It is a pleasure and a deep honor to share this time and space with you. Until next time, I hope you take great care.